Came to Believe group in Rocky Mount, and my sobriety date is September 20th, 2022. The schedule for my home group, the first 3 Tuesdays we study out of the Big Book, and that's a closed meeting. The last Tuesday of the month, we study from the 12 and 12, the tradition corresponding to the month. The first 3 Fridays of the month, we have a chairperson choose a topic out of conference-approved literature in AA, and we discuss it with our home group members. And the last Friday of the month, we have an open speaker meeting, and normally we have a guest speaker from out of town, and they come and they share their experience, strength, and hope with us. So I've been told that I have been taught that I should say what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like now. So I'm gonna start with that. So I was born in a little town called Tarboro, and I was the first daughter and the first granddaughter on my mom's side of the family. And I was basically raised by my mom and my grandparents. I did have a dad. My mom and dad were married. But when I got to about 8 years old, my dad emotionally checked out of my life. So basically, my mom and my grandparents were the ones who took the lead on my raising. I was raised strict Southern Baptist, fire and brimstone tradition. Go to church every Sunday, go to Wednesday Sunday school, mind your manners, respect your elders. You don't question anything. You stay quiet. You don't say anything. Don't question anything, and if you do, you're going to hell. Basically. And I was not gonna lie. I really wanted a relationship with God as a child, but I'm not gonna lie. I was really terrified. I didn't really know what to think about. I'm like, man. I mean, he's supposed to be this supposedly this loving, compassionate, and wonderful God who created me. But if I make any type of little mistake, I'm gonna go to hell. Like, I am just like shaking. Like, what is going on here? Like, I don't really like this at all. And I was like, I would pray, but mostly I would pray in kind of those kind of prayers. Like, it would either be, hey God, please give me this, or hey God, I'm in trouble, help me with this. That type of thing. I was also brought up in a Christian school. My mom could not financially afford it, but my grandparents at the time were financially well off, so they wanted me to have a good schooling according to how they wanted me to be raised. When I was about middle school time, I got transferred to a different Christian school because of financial reasons. And let me say, it was a lot stricter. It was almost kind of like Mormon-y, almost kind of culty. I mean, like, I had to wear skirts to my knees, dresses to my knees. If I questioned anything, like, I would get in trouble. And like I said, it just really continued my whole fear thing with God, and I was just like, man, I really like to have a relationship with God, but I'm scared. I don't really like this. So I kind of really closed myself away from God. And I believed that there was something out there, but I didn't want to believe what I was being told. Because, like I said, it was scary. I mean, telling a kid that kind of stuff, it could be kind of overwhelming. So as far as how I was as a child, I always kind of felt like I didn't really belong. I didn't have a whole lot of friends. I was really shy, very emotional, very sensitive, dealt with a lot of bullying. And I felt like that kind of person. Everyone else got this manual for life, and I was just left out of the equation. I was out of the loop. I didn't know what I was doing. And I had a lot of pressure, and I know now that my grandma was doing it out of love, but at the time, It caused a lot of resentment to me because she would pressure me to be the most perfect. I felt like I had to be the most perfect child you could be. I couldn't make mistakes. I had to make the best grades in school. I had to be the smartest student. And it was really pressuring, and school was a very, very stressful time for me. And I didn't really, even though I was an excellent student and I made ABs, and for the most part, I was a relatively well-behaved child. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a chronic people pleaser. I wanted to please my grandma, and I didn't want to do anything wrong. And I didn't really rebel a whole lot until I got older, when I got around in my teenage years. So once I got around college time, just graduated high school. You know, I know a lot of you in here drank when you were like 13 years old, 16 years old. I didn't have a drink until I was about 18, 19 years old. And what it was is my mom kind of started letting loose me a little bit. You know, she's like, you know, you're a really well-behaved, you know, child, and I really trust you. And she's like, you know what? You know, I would rather you stay at home with me, and I know that you're safe, and you drink here safely, than you get out on the road or hurt somebody or you hurt yourself. So I'd rather you stay at home and you can drink. And my first drink, I won't lie, it felt really nice, and I liked it. But the first drink, it was nice. It felt really good, but it wasn't really anything special. I was like, okay, this is good. All right, thank you for letting me do this, Mom. But this is, you know, it's okay. It's great, you know, it's good. And then when I graduated once I graduated college, and I found myself a job. And I was actually promoted to manager at this job. And at the time, you know, I was like, oh man, this is great, you know. And I was like, okay, you know, I was really proud of myself because I was really insecure about how I was in life. And like, I was like, oh, everyone else is doing so much better than I am. I finally have hit a break here. This is really cool, you know. And it was around 2020. And during that time, I also got married, which was really great too. And that's not negative. Just want to put that out there. It was actually a really happy time. And I think he was happy too. I'm just like, he's happy. He's stuck with me now. Poor Chris. Well, anyway, during that time, you know, things started shutting down, you know, during COVID. And, you know, I had quit going to the gym a whole lot during that time. And everything just kind of closed off. And it was kind of depressing in some ways. And we started having little times where we could open up just a little bit, you know, when things got a little bit better during the end of 2020. And the owner of the place I was working at, he wanted to start doing really nice social events like jazz night, karaoke night. And because I was the manager of the place, he's like, you know what, I really want you to be the one hosting this. I want you to get up and, you know, entertain and let people know they can have fun here and let loose. And I was, you know, I told you I'm a very shy person. I don't like getting in front of everybody and dancing and singing and having fun with strangers. No thank you. Ew. So he was like, you know what? You can have a few drinks. I'm like, okay, boss, cool. All right, I can do this. If you give me a few drinks, I'll do this. And it was like out of nowhere. For the first time, it clicked something inside my brain. I was like, man, so this is what they're talking about. I'm like, I'm feeling good. Like, I feel hot. I feel funny. Like, this is great. I'm like the life of the party. Here I am. I'm going to dance. I'm going to sing. I'm going to be fun. This is great. And it's like, I finally found that missing puzzle piece and that little empty hole inside of me. And it was like, alcohol. It's like, man, so this is what I've been missing. So this is going to fix all my problems. This is it. This is what makes me feel good. This is great. And yeah, it was great for a while. You know, it was great for a while. You know, it was fun. I was fun. And then it was getting to a point where I didn't know when to stop. I didn't know how to stop. And I was getting, kind of like paranoid, and I'm like, you know what, I don't want really anybody telling me how to drink or when I drink. So I'm going to just start doing most of this at home. Because I don't want anybody telling me how much I can drink. I don't want to hear it. Okay? I don't have a problem. And, part of me's like, okay, yeah, maybe I do have a problem. But let's put that in the vault for, a little while. We'll just close that off. And things really started progressively getting worse, and I was getting really depressed, really sick, having really bad migraines, really bad anxiety, getting sick all the time. And I was just like, I'm like, okay, maybe I need some help. And I started going to see a psychiatrist and a therapist. And, I really was actually diagnosed with bipolar type 2 disorder, which I really do have. Believe it or not. But, which also didn't really help with the drinking. It doesn't help. Actually makes it worse. But, it kind of, when I went to therapy, you're supposed to be working through your stuff, and really analyzing what you're doing. But the therapist would really just kind of she would kind of encourage me to be like, yes, you're the victim. Yes, this has been happening in your life. Everyone else has wronged you. La, 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 la. So it went into my whole victim mentality of okay, nothing's my fault. I am just the victim of everything. Everyone has hurt me. I have never hurt them. It was just, I'm the victim. And it was getting to a point where I was honestly not really a great friend and not really great to be around. I was a really miserable person to be around. I was like this big walking wound. Hey, everybody, poke me. There's some dirt in me. I'm just so sad and miserable. And there were some people that would kind of dig into it and be like, you know what, I'm miserable too. I'm depressed too. And but it got to a point where not a lot of people really wanted to be around me. I didn't really have a whole lot of friends after that. Maybe had a couple because they liked the way I drank sometimes with them. But that was about it. And doing other things with them too, and they liked when I did that too. A little. You know what I mean. But I can't get into a whole lot of that because this is an AA meeting. Yes. But I was just not great to be around. I really started closing myself off from my mom. And I wasn't really being a great wife. I would get really angry and outbursts and really overly emotional, and I wasn't really great to him, and he knew something was wrong with me. He grew up in a really dysfunctional family, and he was going, okay, I'm catching on to some things here. And he was like, I'm really worried about you. You're drinking alcoholically. I can tell, this is really concerning me. And I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm good. And he's like, alcohol really is a depressant. And this is what's making you feel better. I'm like, no, it's not. It's actually making me feel better, actually. It's helping everything. And it really wasn't. And it was getting a lot worse, actually. I was getting to a point where I could barely go to my job anymore, and I was having to get somebody to cover me, and I was telling them how sick I was. And I was just really, really depressed. And I hated my life, and I hated myself, and I could hardly look at myself in the mirror anymore. And I was just like this shell of a person, and I was just like, man, this is what I've amounted to, and this is who I am. And I'm like, what really got me here? And, I got to a point where I got really suicidal. Really suicidal. And, I was just like, there'd be days I would be driving home from work, and I'd be like, man, if, someone just hit me right now, it'd be okay, maybe if I got diagnosed with cancer right now and told I was going to die in a month, it'd be okay. I just was really tired of everything, and I was just tired of being here. I didn't really know what to do anymore. And there was one night, I got really drunk, and I was drinking with my sister, And we were cutting up, blah, blah, blah. And then it got to a point, I was just like, started coming up with a plan on how I was going to kill myself. And I was, getting this all together. And then out of nowhere, this little voice in my head just starts popping up. And it's like, hey, well, what if you try something different? And I was like, you know what? Maybe I will. And for the first time in my life, I genuinely asked God for help. And I'm like, God, if you're real and you really care about me, I need help. Can you please help me? I don't know what to do anymore. And all of a sudden, I got this thought in my brain, and I'm going, and it had to come from God. It wasn't me. You need to go to the hospital. It's time to get you somewhere because you're just not. This isn't right. And so, in the middle of the night, I'm shaking my husband, and I'm just like, hey, if I don't get to a hospital soon, I'm gonna try to kill myself. I need some help. And he's like, okay, just give me maybe an hour or so to sleep so I can be able to focus while I drive so I can get you there safely. So we get parked in the parking lot at the treatment center. Actually, the hospital in the emergency room, we were at the emergency room. We were parked at the emergency room, and we park. He just looks over at me, and he's like, man, he's like, I hate where this is all at. He's like, my wife is suicidal and is miserable, and you're sick. And he's like, I am just so upset about this. I just don't know what to do. I am just hurting so bad right now. And he's like, I wish there was something I could do for you. And he's like, he says, when you get back home, I'm locking up all the liquor. I'm locking up all of it. And I was listening to him, and I'm going, okay. In my brain, I'm going, yeah, right. When I get back home, I'm going to get back to drinking. So, get in the ER, and they start, asking me all these questions and getting me checked in. And they decided to put me into the local treatment center that was right in the same facility in that area. And I got put over there. And, that gave me time to kind of reflect while I was there. It's a really boring place if you're ever put into a treatment or psychiatric hospital. It's not. It's like you're a kid all over again. I mean, you put in these scrubs, you put in a line to go to lunch, you're lined up for your medicine, and it's just this la thing in your coloring. And it gave me a lot of time to kind of reflect. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I do have a problem with alcohol. Maybe I am an alcoholic. So I started looking on the schedule for the little hospital, and it gave you certain activities that happened during the week. And during the end of the week, there happened to be an AA meeting. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go to that. So the end of the week gets there, and I'm sat in this room with other, patients in there who also came in there with me. And these two men come into the room, and they start, talking about AA. And at first, talking about the 12 steps and 12 traditions when it was all going on, because I was really met up, everything just sounded kind of like, I'm going, how am I ever going to grasp this information? And I'm like, this is a lot of stuff. How am I going to remember all this stuff? And then one of the gentlemen, he came up, and he told his story. And even though him and I, our drinking phase was a lot longer than mine, but I was able to relate to some of the things he was saying. And they actually happen to be future home group members, by the way. And it really touched me that they came all this way to talk to us. So I decided that Tuesday, when the group was, I was going to come and join and see what it was all about. And, I got checked out of the hospital, and they got checked out. Out of nowhere, I kind of got back into my old routine and mindset, and I found a bottle of wine, hid it in the fridge where I had hid it at. And I started drinking on it a little bit, and out of nowhere, I just got really sick. Mentally, physically, and I was like, oh God, what did I just do? And I put it down, and I was like, okay, I'm still going to go to that meeting tomorrow night. And I got there, And I was scared poopless. I was afraid everyone was going to tear me apart and tell me how horrible I was. And I walked into that room, and I was greeted with so many laughing and smiling faces, and I was being hugged and accepted and loved. And I was like, man, this is a lot different than I thought it was going to be. I was like, I really thought they were just going to tear a new one in me. I was just like, man, But it was just this welcoming presence. And they were talking about like a higher power and God, and I was like, so if this really is God, and this is what God's all about, you know what? Maybe I could do this. Maybe I could. And during that same week, I was actually invited by one of the home group members, and she's like, hey, I would really like you to come to a spiritual retreat we have, and I'd like you to come. It's a little camping trip. And I was like, you know what? Sure. I'd love to come along. And I went, and it was great. But like I said, I was really nervous at the time and very shaky. And you know how it first is when you come out, how shaky and sick you feel, and how overwhelming everything is, and all the lights feel bright, and all the noises feel really loud, and you're just like, oh God, this is very overstimulating. You know how it is. It's very overstimulating and very overwhelming. But everyone was really nice, and the gentleman who led it, I started getting to kind of comprehend of what the 12 steps were. And during that time, I decided to get a sponsor, and she was a temporary sponsor because she lived out of town, about an hour away. And we worked for just a little while. And there was one day, and she's like, hey, Hannah, there's nothing wrong with you, there's nothing wrong with me, but, because I'm out of town, you really need a woman in your group who can work with you. She said, I'm going into the Army, and I can't, I won't be here to be able to help you as much as I can. I think you'll really benefit if you find a good, solid, sober woman in your group. So I was like, okay, I agree with you, actually, it's been wonderful working with you, thank you. And I've been told that I needed to find someone who had some solid sobriety and had something that I wanted. And I was kind of, sitting in the group and listening to different women in my group and telling their stories and how they were doing. And there was one in particular who really stood out to me. And she was very confident, very honest, very outspoken. And I've always been kind of the person, like I said, I'm a pushover. I'm kind of anxious. And I kind of want that for myself. I want to be able to say no, and I want to be able to be truthful and tell people like it is sometimes. Not always. I'm not saying be mean. I'm just saying be mean. But when someone needs to hear something truthful, that you tell them, and you're a good friend to them. That's what I mean. And I asked her to be my sponsor, and she agreed. And we started working together. We really started hitting the books. And probably the most crucial steps for me when I was working through it was probably steps 4 and 5. And I know I was angry, and I was, victim-y and, whatever, and blaming other people. I didn't realize how much anger and resentment I had towards people, and also how I was actually pretty terrible to them too. I wasn't a really nice daughter, or a really nice wife, or a really nice coworker, or a really nice friend. And, it really helped me work through that and realize that, hey, I'm the problem, not everybody else. It's what's going on inside of me. I'm a spiritually sick person. I'm a husk of a person, and I need some spiritual principles to guide me because I'm broken. Absolutely broken. And like I said, at first I was really scared about the God notion and talking about God. But, after I saw how everyone treated me and how it all went, I was like, this is what God is. God is love. God is love. But God is also, when you need, how someone tells you like it is when you need to hear it when you're doing something wrong. God is also that too. God guides you with these spiritual principles. And all these times, thinking about all the times I went through where I could have died or things I did, and I'm going, man, what got me through all that? It had to be God. I mean, it had to be. What else could it be? you know, and it was like for the first time in my life, it was very healing, and I could start to really develop a relationship with this higher power, which I learned to call God. And I actually found a really nice church. And for the first time in my life, I found a pastor that was willing to sit down with me and talk to me about questions I had growing up that whenever I asked about it, it got pushed to the side and I was told I was going to hell if I asked any more questions and that God was mad at me. But the first, he was like, she's like, Hannah, it's okay. It's okay, to have questions. God wants you to ask questions. It's okay. And it was absolutely amazing. For the first time in my life, it was like, man, this is great. It's okay. And I was really afraid when I stopped drinking that I was going to lose everything and lose everybody. But actually, it was quite the opposite. I gained so much from taking alcohol out of my life and taking away trying to ask God to help me take away all these nasty things about me and work on myself and ask God to help me. Because, it was absolutely amazing. I have gained the most wonderful group of friends, the most supportive group of people. I have such a wonderful support group of women. I have such a strong and wonderful sponsorship line of women that are so inspiring and loving and helpful and will tell me like it is if I'm saying something I'm not supposed to be saying, and will tell me like it is. And my first year of sobriety, I was able to actually make amends with my grandma because I told you I had a lot of resentment towards that as far as feeling pressured to be this perfect person. When in reality, that was my problem too. I was putting that in my own head, not just her, and thinking of the fact that, all she wanted was the best for me. Even if it was in her own kind of sick way, like I'm sick. We're all sick, in different ways, that she wanted me to be happy. She wanted me to have a successful life. She wanted the best for me. And I was able to spend a sober Thanksgiving with my grandma and grandpa. I was able to spend a sober Christmas with my grandma. And my grandfather passed away. And then I got the opportunity to caretake for my grandmother right after he passed away. They had been married 60 years. And I had that opportunity, and I will say, even though it was very overwhelming and it was sad and frustrating at times, it was a wonderful opportunity because it was very healing for me and her. And I was able to be honest with her for the first time, and we were able to talk and, telling her a little bit what was going on with my sobriety and how I found God. And it was just wonderful. And around May, she was basically told she was dying, and she was put on hospice. And I got the opportunity, my mother and I moved in with her, and we took care of her 24/7. And instead of being an unhelpful person and being negative and horrible, I was able to be helpful. I was able to sing to her and read the Bible to her and be of service to her. Because even though there was times I was mad at her, she was a great grandma to me. She did some wonderful things for me, so it was great I was able to do that for her and able to take care of her. And I also, my best friend during that time also was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And it was really, really sad. But you know what? Those last few months, I was able to be sober. I was able to be helpful. And if she needed something, I was there for her. She actually, she wanted to get like a tattoo before she passed away. And I was able to drive her there, and she got that tattoo she wanted. And we had a good time together. And, it was great. I got to have those opportunities to do better and be better and not be a selfish person and be the victim and make everything miserable. I was able to be helpful, and I wouldn't trade that. And it's absolutely amazing to imagine what would have happened if I had been drinking. Like, how the complete opposite it would have been and how an absolute disaster it would have been. And it's just crazy to think about. And it's absolutely amazing. And I am so grateful for every one of you who has touched my lives and been there. You know, you were part of the reason that helped me find God. You know, God guided you to me. And it's absolutely amazing because I was, you know, for the first time in my life, I have fit in somewhere. And it's an absolute blessing. You know, I can sit here and we can, laugh about stuff together and be serious sometimes too. But it's great. It's been an absolute blessing because, you know, when I was drinking towards the end, I felt so alone. So alone. But I'm not alone anymore. And if I'm having an issue or something, you know, I can talk to God. And who else I also have? I can call my sponsor and I can talk to her, or I can talk to someone in my sponsorship line or some of the nice people in my home group. I have a support system, and I have a toolbox now. And then, yeah, maybe there is sometimes I will fall apart a little bit and certain character defects will pop up. But it's not as frequent as it used to be. Like, I mean, yeah, sometimes I'm still ugly sometimes. We all can be, right? Be a little bit ugly and say and get a little snappy sometimes. But it's not as frequent as it used to be. And if I can catch myself in it, I can be like, hey, let's shut up. Let's say a serenity prayer. Let's say the St. Francis prayer. Let's get ourselves together. These days, I just got a job. I'm a reliable employee. Hopefully, and if I continue to stay it one day at a time and ask God to help me every single day, she don't have to worry about me being hungover at work or calling out of work because I was sick. My mom can rely on me if she needs something. I can be a good spouse to my husband. I'm an active member in a church, and I sing in the praise and worship team, which is pretty amazing because, remember I told you I don't like getting in front of people, and I don't like talking and dancing and singing in front of people without alcohol. But you know what? God has given me a gift that I can start doing that stuff now. So even though, you know, right now I'm a little nervous too, but you know what? I'm up here and I'm doing it, and I'm not drinking. Yeah, I'm not drinking. Isn't that wonderful? I'm of sober mind. It's great. It's really amazing what happens. That phrase, when you let go and you let God. It's amazing. And that's all I got.